Hello and welcome to the Minnesota Association of Townships seminar, Is This a Town Road and How Do I Find Out? I'm Steve Fensky and I'm one of the MAT attorneys, and this topic is one of the most common questions that we get at MAT, and it's because first, townships have roads as one of their primary sources of infrastructure and primary responsibility, but also because there's several ways to create or lose a town road, and they're not always obvious, and the ways that people think may create a road or don't are misunderstood. And that's true even of other officials. Even surveyors may not know that. Even county officials may not know all of those ways. So it is a rather confusing topic, but we're going to walk through it. And to try and help, we have done a couple of different documents. There are a couple of different approaches you could take. One is the flow chart that's in document TR, as in Town Road 5000, and it's included with the materials in this presentation. That document provides a flow chart on the last page, and it's easiest viewed on a screen if you can, because it is color coded, and each box corresponds to a description in the pages before it. And those descriptions are summaries, okay? Those are just a reminder of what these concepts are. The document that would explain them more fully would be TR 4000, as in Town Road 4000. Both of those documents included in the materials, but also you can find them on our information library if you need to go back or look to see if there's an updated version. We're going to use both of these documents. If the flowchart works for you, that's great. Some people learn that way and it's effective, but if not, don't worry about it. You don't need it to understand these topics. Instead, you're going to probably use the TR 4000 to try and understand how you create a road and eventually how you get rid of it. So we'll move on from there and get into our content. As a broad overview of the process we're going to use, we start from the beginning. We start from how did you create this road in the first place, and try to identify which way you did that. And then after we've done that, we move to, did you lose or get rid of your easement or right-of-way? And that's reflected in the TR 5000 document. If you look on the left side of the flow chart, you have was an easement created, and then we have 6 ways that you could create an easement. And for this purpose, easement or right-of-way or road, it's all the same. It's all the same idea that you have something that is the townships that you get to create a driving surface. And then once we figure out one of those things, let's say we have one of those, we go to the other side or the bottom, and did we lose it, or is it restricted in some way? And that's the broad process we use. And because of that, you need to know these methods, and you're going to need to know some information from your records, or perhaps records held by the county. Okay. The documents we're going to look for example, could be what are called road orders, which are commonly used to create right-of-way, and those were filed typically with the county somewhere, but you may also have them in your town records. It may be minutes, it may be resolutions, it may be documents online, it could be an individual property owner's abstract. Sometimes there's something reflected there. But it's also important to keep in mind, as we'll touch on later, that sometimes you don't have records other than maybe your maintenance, and that might still be okay to create a town road. Okay, so overall, we're going to start from did you create a road, and then move to did you lose this road in some way. Our first method of creating a road is called formal establishment, and it's convenient. It's also going to be a method used to vacate roads, so we're going to come back to it later. This is a process provided in statute, and the statute's up there, 164.07. It starts in a couple of ways. It could be either landowners in the area where the road's to be created petition for it, or it could be started by voters at the annual meeting. But it's a government taking because you're going to formally take right-of-way from some landowner or landowners. As it's a taking, it has due process requirements and damage award requirements. I'm not going to talk about the whole process here because it is somewhat of a lengthy process, but if you needed or wanted to see it, you could take a look at document TR4000A, which is Appendix A in the information library, and you'd see a checklist that talks about all these things you have to do, which includes those 2 starting points, notice, opportunities for hearings, and eventually, if you create a road, damage awards. And so that process is available there for you to look at. But when you're trying to figure out if you have a road, this is the very first place you want to look. And it's because if this process was followed, you should find what's called a road order filed with the county. The best place to find this, for reasons I will explain in the next slide, is in the county recorder's office. Nowadays, these road orders are filed there with the county. If you didn't find it there, you then want to make sure that it wasn't in the county auditor's office, because at one point they were filed in the county auditor's office. And even if you didn't find it there, you may want to look through your town records just to see what you have, because occasionally county records go missing, or there's cases of fire, and your town record might be the only thing left of a road order. So we would start by looking in those places for the road order. If you get one of these things, it would have a description of what that road is. It would be something that a surveyor could plot out for you, and you'd be able to see, here's what you were given by this road order there. Typically 66 feet in width. So if you have a road that you believe is 66 feet in width, it's probably because it was formerly created potentially by this method. For documents, I've mentioned the road order already. Okay, that's the primary thing you'd look for, but you could look for other things. It could be in minutes or resolutions in the township that would make some kind of reference to it. You could have invoices for surveyors, for attorneys, or for the company that would actually, you'd hire to build the road. You might have damage award payments. So you could look back at financial records in the town to see if you made any damage awards. This could be a reason that you'd make those. Likewise, you could see evidence of a formal road on an individual landowner's abstract. Not always, depending on when the road is created, but it could be there, which isn't, it's persuasive evidence that you have something there. It's not definitive, though. It used to be the townships had to file their road orders with the county auditor, and it's because that statute we talked about, 164.07, said that's what they did. So township would go through that whole process, produce a road order, and then file it in the county auditor's office. And it was understood that that was all the town needed to do. They would not put it in the recorder's office because the statute didn't say anything about it. Well, then in 1973, the legislature changed that statute, but it looks almost identical today as it did before 1973. And what they did was they took out the word auditor and they put in the word recorder, which raised the question of, well, were any of those old town roads that were filed in the auditor's office, were they recorded? And the court, in a case in 1976, it's referenced here, came to the conclusion that no, that filing them with the auditor's office, even though that's what the statute said to do, was not recording. And it produced a problem for townships that we continue to see today. And it's why I reflected in the prior slide that in the recorder's office is best, auditor is good, and neither is, well, you look for something else. Okay. Well, this 1976 case posed this problem of a township had an old road. It was filed with the auditor's office, and they had maintained some of it for some time, but it appears that they had not maintained some or all of it later. And eventually, the landowners argued that the township lost their right to that property. They said something called the Marketable Title Act, or the 40-year law, made the town lose its possession, or made the town lose its interest in that road. And we'll talk about that law more soon. But the effect was that the court agreed with the landowners and said, well, because it wasn't in the recorder's office, it's not a recorded road, meaning it's for the Marketable Title Act, the town would have to keep doing something to show possession, and if they didn't, over a 40-year time, then they would lose that road. That's why if it's in the recorder's office, it's good, because even if you don't touch it for a while, you still get to keep that road interest. Whereas in the auditor's office, if that's where your road order is filed for a road, it makes it more likely that the township could lose that right of way, either all or a portion of it. So if we return for a moment to our TR 5000 document, we looked on the left side, it says formal establishment. Was an easement created? Yes. Well, if yes, then you would follow that line and we jump to the right side of the page. But let's say our answer is no, we did not have a formally established or created road. No, we drop down to item 2 there, prescriptive easement. And that brings us to the slide. Prescriptive easement has several names. You may have heard of it as a user road or as a use and maintenance road. Different names, all of them coming down to the idea that the public has used and maintained this road through the township. And after a certain amount of time, it becomes a town road to the extent of its maintenance. And it is by statute. The statute's provided there, 160.05. And that statute says, if a township performs 6 consecutive years of maintenance, okay, any 6 consecutive years, this is not the last 6 years, any 6, okay, of maintenance on this road, and that road is open to public use, then it becomes a public easement, a township road, to the width of the town's maintenance, okay? This is not recorded. This idea drives some people crazy. It's a foreign idea to some people that interests in land are not recorded, and that something could exist there that is not found on their deed, on their abstract, or in the recorder's office. But that's what this is. And we estimate that over half of town roads are likely user roads or prescriptive easements. They're not recorded anywhere. They through long history of use and maintenance, these are township roads. Okay, so what do you look for in this? Because this is a little harder. You're not going to find a document necessarily. What we look for are the records of maintenance. What did the township do and when? So this is the road surface, of course. Anything you do on the road surface, putting down gravel, blading, plowing, all that. But then we get into the ditch area. And of course, you need more than just the road surface to operate a road. And so we look at, what did you do in the ditch? Did you mow anything or take care of noxious weeds in that area? Does it have an inslope? If this road has a built-up, if it's built up and has an inslope, well, that inslope is part of the drainage that supports this road. So that's part of your maintenance and right-of-way. Likewise, if it has an outslope that has been maintained to some extent, that would also probably be part of your town right-of-way there. It could be any tree removal or brushing or mowing that you do, and how wide do you do that? Those are all factors that go into this. The last one that we look at that typically creates the most right-of-way, the most distance, is snow plowing, because as the snow is plowed, it has to be pushed out to the side. Of course, it's not just removed out entirely, and the area where that snow lands once it's plowed becomes this town's snow storage. So the method you'd use to figure out what you've got, you add up all of these things, and it could be that you have to talk to maintenance crew, present or past, town supervisors, again, present or past, and you write down all the things you do on a road, and you estimate how far from the edge of the road, the driving surface, does this go. And you get an idea, an average of, well, we think we use about this much of our space from the road for our road purposes, and you'd end up probably creating something like a resolution. Although the whereas statements being all the things, all the maintenance you do, and the end being, therefore be it resolved, the town claims this amount of right-of-way on this road, and you list the statute. Okay. Now the upside is that you have a lot of opportunities to create right-of-way through this, and it has created a lot of town roads. And when we can't find another method to create a town road, this is often the one that ended up making one. Okay, maybe we had a formally established road, but we can't find records. Well, chances are you've been maintaining it any 6 consecutive years and open to the public. Well, at the very least, you have a prescriptive easement. So these things are helpful in that way. The downside being we don't know the actual right-of-way width. You can't go survey it because it doesn't show up anywhere. And this can lead to disputes with landowners sometimes, contractors, things like that. So those are the downsides to it. But overall, this is a very useful statute. It is important to note that it changed this year, 2020. It now has an additional requirement that for any new road, any road that would be created under this after 2020, the town would also have to send a written notice to landowners whose the town is maintaining, part of private property. This is a bit counterintuitive. Usually these roads are created because people needed an access. Everybody understood it was for the good of the public. Yes, it was over private property, but that was okay for people because they wanted a road. The reflection of this now is somewhat different. It's, well, this is an intrusion on private property, and it's not usually intentional. It's just that after a certain amount of time of putting public resources into it, the statute has said, well, we have to recognize how much the public has put into this, and that the landowner never stopped it or said, wait a minute, that's mine, don't do that. But now the statute requires that to create any new right-of-way under this statute, the town has to give this written notification to the landowners saying we're maintaining this part of your property. If you don't stop us after 6 years, this could become township property. It's an added burden. It is frustrating for townships, I imagine. And as it's brand new, we don't know what effect it will have yet. It can have some very negative unintentional consequences, and we'll see what those pan out to be over time. We again look back to our flow chart, our TR 5000 flow chart, if that's what you're using, and let's say we didn't find a formal establishment, so we drop down. We didn't find prescriptive easement, we got to drop down again, and that brings us to this one, owner dedication. Owner dedication, again provided in statute, is a more simple way to create a town road because it bypasses a lot of the that due process that I talked about in formal establishment. And it's because here some landowner is offering to just give the township the right of way. So if ever you face that situation where somebody wants a road or you need a turnaround and they're willing to give property to the township, this might be the best and easiest way to go about it. It's a pretty simple and short statute. It says the landowner applies or offers the land to the town board, and then they're supposed to do that within 10 days of the board's action. So you time it to when you have another board meeting, and then the board can consider it, and if they agree to it, you produce, if you could produce a road order, that would be excellent, because then you could file it and you'd have a good record held by the county, and everybody could go see and look that the town has an interest in this property. But if not, something else, some resolution adopting this acceptance of a gift, and now you have this additional right-of-way. So this can be a very easy way to create that right-of-way. What you'd want to find is owner's application, like the statute requires. Towns should keep this kind of stuff. Remember, unless there's some data retention schedule that allows them to get rid of it. And this is one that you probably want to hang on to forever, because it shows part of your infrastructure and how you got it. If you didn't have the application, you could look for resolutions. You could look for a road order, okay, but then it probably would have shown up in that first inquiry with formal establishment. It could be in the minutes. You could certainly talk to landowners, whether it's the current landowner or a previous landowner. Okay, all of those are useful methods of figuring out what you have here. Our next method is the county turnback. And again, this would, on our chart, we would come to this if we said no to the prior methods of creation. And I won't keep saying that, because at this point I think folks either got it or it's just not going to work for you. But the idea here in county turnback, counties can take town roads and turn them into county roads when they want, and they also have the power to take their county roads and revert them. It's often called a county road reversion to the township, and the town doesn't really have much ability to refuse. It begins in the county board. They decide that they want to do this or don't. And if they do, they are supposed to approach the township, explain what they're doing, what they're giving back. It should be memorialized in some way, whether that's county resolution and township resolution. It could be a road order. It could be a variety of things, but something to tell the township, here is exactly what you get, so that you as a township don't later have a problem trying to figure out, well, they gave us something, but they didn't really tell us what it is, and now you have to figure it out because it's your road, it's your problem. The limitations on this are that if the county is going to give back a road, they're supposed to give back in a condition that is suitable for their town road. So they have to bring them up to their county specs for that type of road. All right. And now the statute says a township could refuse to take it. Effectively, the township could say, well, we don't want it either, so we're going to vacate it, and the county would need to pay the costs. It says that, but in practice, it doesn't really work that way, because most of these county turnback roads are the only access for at least one landowner to get in and out of their property. And of course, there's a statute saying no government can landlock a parcel. So in practice, townships typically can't vacate any of these roads that they're given from the county when they're turned back over. The best you can do is make sure you get something in good condition to begin with, and then plan for how you're going to keep that and maintain it in the future. Method 5 is called common law dedication. This is a little bit different from the other methods in that it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a township road. Common law is judge-made law. It's not statute. It's problems came before judges. They needed to resolve them. That's part of what they did. So they would make bench law, or common law as it's called. And this kind of road comes about when an owner does something, either expressly saying that they're giving a road to the public, or by their actions they're saying, I give this road to the public. So that's kind of what we're looking for. Did an owner of private property do something that allowed people to access this and drive on it, or something like that? So it means a road could be created right away, usually by express a statement by an owner. So an owner saying, I give this road, I dedicate this road to the public, something like that, and making it available to people. There's your instant road common law dedication. But it could also be over a long period of time based on a course of conduct, like a landowner making a roadway available for people to access a lake that maybe they couldn't access there because it's not public property, but they want people to be able to go there. They make this open to people. It becomes understood that anyone's allowed to go there. There's no statement of, well, it's private property. There might be it could be express statements at times that it's open to the public. It could be the addition of all the things that person does. They maybe don't care for it at all, or maybe they care for it in a way that shows they're letting the public use it. They put in parking, for example. Well, gosh, why would you need parking if it's private property? Those could raise questions about what it is. So it can be hard to figure out what it is unless you have that express dedication. But no matter what, it's not a town road until it's accepted by the town board. An owner may say, well, I give this to the township, but the town, that's not how it creates a town road. The board would have to do something to accept it. So you may have roads out there that are common law dedicated. It's not the township's road or problem or obligation. The town shouldn't be caring for those roads until they're ready to take them. Okay, but some of your roads may have started this way. They may have started as a common law dedication, and then the town ended up maintaining them. All right, so here we may have another overlap. We have, well, the landowner dedicated it by common law, and then the grader operator and the plow operator they just started maintaining them, and they did it for 6 years, and it was open to the public. Well, that brings us right back to our second method of creation, prescriptive easement. And so now we may have a couple of different ways that we have created right-of-way. Okay, with this, you're going to need to find expressions of dedication by the owner. Now, you might find something in the town board minutes or resolutions, but often you're going to have to go to owners and talk to people who use it to try and get some sense of what it is. And even then, these sometimes have to go to courts to figure out what the intent was if there's any kind of dispute. The last method of creation we're going to talk about is a platted road, and by this we're looking at platted subdivisions. So some landowner took his larger parcel, put it into smaller pieces, and then is trying to typically sell them off. This could be residential or commercial. Typically for a town it's residential, but it is governed by statute, and statute's up there, 505.02. That chapter in general talks about this idea. When a landowner does it and they're following that statute, it requires that the landowner include roads, ingress and egress roads, as it talks about, that are dedicated to the public. So it allows the people who own within the plat to get in and out, and the public at large to get into that and access those places. So when a owner does this, they make their plat. It shows their subdivided lots, and it will have areas set aside for roads. And there's usually a notation either right along those roads or in some box around there on the plat that says roads are dedicated to the public use. And it might be something that even references a local government, but that language means this is held in trust for a local government until that local government decides it wants to take them. So again, it does not create a town road. It creates something that the town can accept if and when it's ready, or never at all. It could decide never to accept these roads. The great thing about this, they're filed, they're recorded at the county recorder's office. It's a fairly, I'll say, highly regulated process, so you will find good records of this. You know what you've got if you have one of these things. Now it can change a little bit what you do with a platted road. Let's say you find that they created a plat. Okay, well now you still have to figure out, did the township accept that road that was dedicated to the public? Did they accept all of the roads in the plat, or did they only accept some? That can be shown by board resolution, and that's the recommended practice. If a board's going to accept platted roads, they do so in a more formal way like a resolution. But it could be by activity. If the town has decided they're going to plow these platted roads and they never formally accept them, well, chances are the town has accepted it by conduct, by their actions, not their words. And in that case, the town should probably talk to the township attorney to decide what they may be able to claim or disclaim concerning the platted roads in that plat. Okay, that is our methods of road creation. And again, that walked through the left side of the flow chart. Okay, did you get any of these? Let's say we answered no to all 6 of them. All right. Well, in that case, you'd follow those no's all the way down to a yellow box kind of in the middle that says, probably not a town road. Not your problem, to bring us to our next slide. Okay, you don't have a maintenance responsibility. It's not a town road right now. If you wanted it to be a town road, then we'd have to look back up and you could figure out, well, is there a way we can make it a town road? Maybe you could accept it. Maybe maybe you could use formal establishment, but maybe there are other ways, right? So you can use this method regardless of whether you want the road or don't want the road, because we're not in this process trying to tell you you should or shouldn't get a road or take it. It's just, what do you have now? Okay. If we answered yes to any of these questions, we're not done yet. We still have to figure out if the easement was lost. Maybe it was never accepted, maybe it was lost, and we'll walk through some of those methods next. So let's assume we had a road at some point. We answered yes to one of our questions. We now have to figure out, do we still have it? And we're going to return to our flow chart for a moment here. On the right side, generally we have, was the easement lost or restricted? But you'll also notice that below the platted item on the left side, you see 3 orange boxes: vacation, abandoned, accepted for maintenance. It's because, like I said, platted presents its own set of interesting questions that you have to deal with. And so, but the numbers are connected there, and there is some overlap. The vacation on the platted side is the same as formal vacation on the right-hand side. Likewise, abandoned is the same in both places where it appears. Okay, so it shouldn't be too difficult to walk through that. And so let's say we found a road on any of these, we now have to jump to our other side, and we'll start from the top on the other side. Our first method of losing or getting rid of a road is something we've already talked about. Formal vacation is the same statute as formal establishment. So you have a petition and a hearing, and you decide if you're going to keep or get rid of a road, and the things you look for are going to be the same. You're going to look for a road order, or vacation order, it could be called, at the county recorder, potentially the auditor, but less likely there. You can look at minutes or resolutions, damage award payments, because sometimes getting rid of a road, even though you're giving property back in a way, can still require a damage payment. You can certainly talk to people who are on the board or did maintenance on the roads at different times. Those are all useful methods. Again, if we find we did formally vacate, let's say you find a vacation order, yes, well, then we follow our chart here to easement probably lost on the flow chart. Okay, if not, then we have to jump down to the next one. Our second method of getting rid of a road is called statutory abandonment in the statute. I think it's a little, it's a misleading name in that it uses the term abandonment. It's confusing because the common law abandonment that we're going to talk about next is a very different process, and so for this I prefer calling it statutory extinguishment or quick vacation to avoid the confusion, and so that's what I'm going to do here. A lot of townships that want to get rid of a road, they look at that formal vacation process we talked about last slide and all the due process required, and they say, gosh, that looks really hard. It would be easier to just do this quick vacation thing. Can't we do that? Often the answer is no, because it's a limited set of roads that this process could be used for. Okay, these things here we list 1 through 5 have to be true to use this process at all. First, the board has to decide it's in the public interest to get rid of this road, and they'd have to make the findings of, well, this isn't good for the public to keep it, or it'd be better for us to get rid of it. Second, the town can't have a fee interest, meaning it can't really own the property. It's supposed to be just for rights of way, an easement of some kind. Okay. Fee ownership is like the way a person owns their home typically. The way the township owns the land that its town hall is on. It's not renting it or leasing it. It's not an easement. It owns that property. It's the title. It has the title. Okay. So here it's got to be in the public interest. It's not a ownership interest. It's not a fee interest. 3, this road was established more than 25 years ago. It cannot be recent. 4, it is not recorded with the county recorder, and the statute is specific. It says county recorder. Okay, and on that point, we can use that auditor versus recorder thing to the town's advantage in this. So let's say that this road is not recorded with the recorder. It qualifies, even if it's in the auditor's office. It appears it would qualify for this statute because the legislature was specific in naming the recorder's office. So it's possible that an old road recorded with the county auditor's office could meet these criteria and still be eligible for this. Okay. Last, no improvement or maintenance on this road surface for 25 years. So it's the idea, adding all these things up, is that, well, the township had something, but it hasn't done anything to it in a very long time. And because this long period of no maintenance, it's probably not enough for abandonment, we're going to talk about next, but it doesn't make sense necessarily to send them through that whole formal vacation process, so the legislature made this easier process. If all of these things are true, you check all the boxes, then the board can file a resolution, produce it and pass it, that orders extinguishment, and this should be kept in the town's records, but it should also be filed with the county, if possible, with the county recorder's office, right? To say, whatever interest we had there, we no longer have, and you put the world on notice of it. Well, let's say our first 2 methods didn't work. We can't formally vacate, or don't want to, or we didn't, and we didn't use quick vacation. Well, our third method is common law abandonment. This is what people think of when they think of abandonment. They think, oh, it's a long period of non-use. And that's, as you see here, that is only the first part of this test. Okay, to show common law abandonment, you have to show a long period of non-use, but also express intent to abandon. Express intent is the difficult part and the thing that most townships cannot show when they say, well, we want it, can't we just say it's abandoned? Often the answer is no, and it's because the township never made any statement and never took any action to show that it was intending to abandon. And courts have said that the long period of non-use, or ignoring it, in other words, does not show express intent. Okay, so you need something more. You probably need statements. You probably need something to clearly say, well, if it was ours, we abandon it. We're not going to take care of it ever. It's not ours anymore. Something to those effect that over time show a clear intent on the part of a board. In other words, it has to be active. Can't be passive. Okay, you're not going to accidentally abandon something here. You need to be purposeful. So chances are you did not abandon a road. I've seen it off very few cases where a township board intentionally made those kind of statements and it worked to their advantage in saying something was abandoned. So here you'd probably look back at minutes, resolutions. You could look at road tour notes. The towns that have made statements, on their road tour in the spring, they may say, well, that was a town road, but it's not now, or we disclaimed that road a long time ago. They did something to say we're getting rid of it. Okay. The only advantage you really see in abandonment is it isn't supposed to cost anything, but it's only that you only get that result if people agree to the abandonment. So maybe landowners are okay with the abandonment around the area, and then it's okay. The town doesn't have to do it. The landowners get their land back. Okay, maybe that's good. The downside is you may not know for certain if you have abandoned a road until a court case has been filed and a judge goes through and tells you, yep, you abandoned it, or no, you didn't. So there's risk in this. And if you actually want to get rid of a road, this is not the one you would typically rely on. Okay, but let's say we don't have any of our factors here. We didn't vacate, we didn't extinguish, and we haven't abandoned. Well, that brings us to our next item that we have touched on, and that is the Marketable Title Act, or 40-year law. It says unrecorded interests in land are lost after 40 years of non-use or lack of possession. So this law wasn't written to just apply to local governments or anything. This applies to any landowner, and towns basically got scooped into it. So it's saying any unrecorded interest, meaning anything not in the recorder's office, is void. Okay, and so it's like it never existed. It's gone. We say you never had it. If you've got 40 years of lack of possession is what the courts have looked at for towns. Towns show possession on a road by doing maintenance. So if you're trying to figure out, did you lose something to the 40-year law, first thing is figure out, well, is it recorded? And this goes back to our best good discussion about filing road orders. Okay. If you have a road order and it's in the recorder's office, the 40-year law should never come into play. It shouldn't ever come into play. Not to say a plaintiff won't try, but that's recorded. Okay, it's not an unrecorded interest. But the question comes in, and this could be ripe for re-examination by some township. What about those interests in the auditor's office? It is possible that you could have a court look at that again and come to different conclusions than they did in 1976 about whether a township still has its road. The thing that would work against a township here is if they didn't do something to the road for 40 years. Well, it tends to show, what do you need it for? Why are you trying to keep it? And that's where I think it's difficult for judges to say that the town would be able to keep its road filed in the auditor's office even though they didn't maintain it for 40 some years. Okay. The message here, figure out what you've done with maintenance, and you may have to go back a long time. Okay, if it's unrecorded in particular, you have to know that you did maintenance at some point, document it. Again, the best method I've seen is where the road workers, whether that's contractor or employees, have a chart of all the town roads, and they make a notation of the date they did something on each road and a brief description of what it was. And those get filed every so often. So when we get disputes about this kind of stuff, we can just go right back and show, look, here's what we did in maintenance. We can have a better chance of defeating 40-year law claims in those situations. And the next method we look at for a restriction. This is a restriction. It's not a loss of right-of-way. It's called we call it the 25-year law. It is Minnesota Statute 365.10 sub 11, and it's just a spending limitation. It says, well, if a town has a road but it has not maintained it, hasn't done anything on it for 25 years, then it can't just start maintaining it again. It first needs the permission of voters at the annual meeting to, as it says, reopen the road. And now the road may have been open. It's not that it's closed. It may have been open to the public use, and maybe it was not maintained. Maybe it was by private parties. Who knows? But if the town hasn't done something on a road for 25 years, it has not lost the right-of-way. You still have it, but you just can't do anything to it, even if you wanted to, until you get the voters' permission to reopen that road and begin maintaining it again. Towns find themselves on either side of this dispute. Sometimes they want to maintain it and can't, and other times they don't want to maintain it and can use that 25-year law to point out, look, the voters have to decide on this. It's out of their hands whether they would like to or not. Okay, so you're here going to need to find maintenance records, minutes or resolutions talking about the road, talk to the staff about what happened. Road tour notes, again, are going to be great. And you've seen some overlap. Okay, those kind of records we've talked about with prescriptive easements. We've talked about them on common law dedication, public maintenance for the 40-year law, and here 25-year law. So all of it really kind of adds up to, if you keep decent records, even basic records that tend to show you've maintained something, the township is going to be in a much better position to figure out whether it still has a road or whether it lost it in some way. The last box on the chart that I wanted to mention, and we don't have a slide for it, and it's because it doesn't have that much to talk about, but it's box 14, and it's on the bottom left side of the flow chart, and it says accepted for maintenance. It's there because with platted roads above, what you have to check for is, well, did you have a platted road? If yes, did we vacate or abandon it? And last, remember, because a platted road isn't your town road until it's accepted, you have to consider whether you ever accepted that road as a town road, either by resolution or statement or by acts over time. So that's the only one on there that we don't have a slide for. That brings us to cartways. Cartways are not in this list, and it's because cartways are a completely different animal. You would not use this set of flow charts and information to figure out what you have with a cartway. Cartways are misunderstood very much, even by town officers and attorneys for that matter, because they are somewhat confusing. A cartway is a public road. It's defined that way in statute, but it's privately maintained. And if you have a cartway, what you should find is a road order, but it would typically grant only 33 feet of right-of-way instead of the 66 that you see with a normal road. That would be one indication. That is not, however, the only way. The point here is, please don't confuse cartways with anything we've talked about here. If you think you have a cartway, we have to have a very different discussion about what this thing is and whether you still have it. And you have a lot more options, because with a cartway, of course, privately maintained means the township, it does not have any obligation to do anything with it, even if it happens to have been created as a cartway. We spent quite a bit of time looking through this flow chart and these documents, and there's a lot of concepts here. And do not feel bad or alone if you are confused about this. There are a lot of different things that go on with township roads and how they're created and how they're lost. And as I mentioned, some of these even overlap. Sometimes you have several ways that an easement was created, and you could have a couple things going on to lose them or restrict them. So when you encounter problems, your township may need the town attorney to help, and that person can do the investigation for you, or you can bring information and documents to them, send them to them, and they can give you an opinion about what is it you have and what should you do. That can be useful planning when you run into one of these problems. It can help you save money in the long run to spend a little bit on an attorney giving you an opinion in the short term. That brings us to the end of our material on Is This a Town Road? And please remember you have those written resources available to you, whether it's TR 4000 and its appendices and TR 5000. And of course you can always call the MAT attorneys who are available to help townships understand those ideas and concepts and answer the questions that we didn't get to answer in this presentation. Thank you.